Hello, and welcome to another episode. We've got our good friend, Mr. Gregory Nunley, back with us this week. Last week, Mr. Nunley graced us with some great words of wisdom, talking about the influence that his father provided him on his life, growing to become an educator, growing, more importantly, to become a father, a husband, and a man of God. I'm Kevin Smith. This is Leadership Synergized. Mr. Nunley, my friend, thank you so much. I know you're busy and you've got family waiting at home as we film or record this episode, but it means so much to me. So thank you from the bottom of my heart that you're here again, my friend.
No, I'm glad to be here and to do it with you. It means the world to me that you even considered me as a guest, and that sincerely. So I'm honored, and anything that I can share that will be of help to someone else, I'm glad to do it.
Thank you. You're very kind. And I would have been amiss to not have included someone as effective and positive and successful as you, my friend. As we wrapped up last week's episode, Mr. Nunley, you were talking about the importance of being in the moment, balance of life. I tend to refer more to it as a rhythm, a pace that really is dependent on, you talked about it, having those effective, positive relationships, celebrating and valuing sometimes maybe the routine items. And that really is where excellence can come from in that regard. What challenges do you think educators or leaders today really have to face to ensure that they don't lose sight of the successes they're having, even when others may not be noting them?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think it is one that particularly teachers, administrators struggle with because we're in the world of test scores. And ultimately, schools, specifically here in Indiana, receive letter grades based on those test scores. And so when you're in that reality, it's hard sometimes to see the growth, the small growth that is happening over time because you're so focused on, man, they were so far behind. Even though they're making gains, they may not get where we need them to be so that we're okay with the state in regards to test scores. So that's a great challenge. One of the things, though, that I've always asked of teachers is to celebrate the small victories because that's what's going to sustain you. And that is what's going to fuel the kid to keep moving forward, to keep pushing forward. It's that idea of positive reinforcement. I think when we have a mind that is a mindset that's positive, our creative centers, I think, just work better because we're in a better place to learn and to grow and to develop. And so you'll see teachers, there's a reason why they put kids' student work on the walls. It's not just because they're trying to make their room look pretty. No, they want the kids to see you accomplished that. You did it. You made it. We want to honor you. And whoever comes into this room, we want them to see it. We're celebrating you. And I think that has such value for kids, but also for teachers as they're trying growth and development. We know what the big picture is, but the only way to get there is by doing the small steps, the making that incremental progress. It's like losing weight. I've been trying to lose weight for the longest. You can go into the weight room one time and you get a good lift and you're like, oh, I feel good. And then you get on the scale and I didn't lose that 20 pounds today. But they tell you over time, you look at your eating habits, keep going to the gym and working out and exercising. They tell you, take a picture of yourself, right? Because it may not show up on the scale right away, but take a picture of yourself. And then in 2 weeks, look at that picture and you will start to see a difference. And that's that motivation to keep pushing forward. And that's why celebrating the small victories is so important.
Mr. Nunley, building on that a little bit, we hear a lot about the shortages of available teachers, not only in the state of Indiana, but around the country.
Yeah.
I've also heard a countering argument that says there's really not a shortage of available people wanting to go into education. I tend to believe there is, just based on the numbers and things that I read. Why do you think that's the case? If indeed there's a shortage out there of resources to come into our classrooms, and what do we do to change that?
I will say, I think education has become more politicized. And regardless of what aisle you stand on, I believe at the heart, most teachers just want to go in there and do right by kids. They want to go in that classroom, they want to teach their whatever it is their content is. They want to try to build relationships, they want to connect with kids. They want to reach that kid that maybe have some struggles. They want to celebrate those kids that are doing well and celebrate that growth. But I think the politicizing of education has made it tough where now teachers they don't know what they can say, what they can't say, what to teach, what not to teach. And then I will be also be honest with you, pay. Like we have to pay our teachers what they deserve. When you look at any other field, they're getting raises with the rate of inflation. Our teachers are underpaid. We have to pay them. And so I think when you have the political nature of what's going on and then not paying our teachers what their value is, I think that's when you get to the situation where you have a teacher shortage. Teachers should not have to have a second job just to put food on the table. And when we're at that point, that's a problem. But if you're asking me to do that, but then you're coming into my classroom and you're criticizing what I teach and how I teach and when I teach and where I teach, that's asking a lot of anybody. And so I think that's part of the issue. Now, there's a way to solve that. Give education back to the superintendents, the principals, the administrators, the teachers. Let them figure this stuff out. Because I guarantee you, if you put a bunch of teachers in a room with great principals and great teachers and superintendents, and you put them in a room tell them to solve the problem, I guarantee you they'll solve it.
I could not agree with you more. 100%. The individuals that have to take the heat and the complaints, unfortunately, aren't the ones that are able to make the decisions that need to be made because of whatever that of might be. But I
Right.
really hear you say, I'm gonna boil it down to one word. Teachers simply want to be appreciated, just like any of God's children. We just want to be appreciated. Don't have to be agreed with. You don't have to
Right.
want to, you don't have to have the same viewpoint and philosophy to where you come and do it exactly the way I would do it. That's not what it's about. Just appreciate us in that particular regard. So you said that very well. And if the teacher shortage doesn't turn around, I would imagine in the next couple of decades, we could be at a real critical breaking point, wouldn't you think, in the value of skills we have teaching our young children?
I've said, and my wife and I have had this conversation at home. I said, it's the crisis of our time that I don't think enough people are talking about. You'll hear some stories every once in a while. It'll be a news story here or there,
Mhm.
but it is the crisis of our time that I do not believe enough people are paying attention to. And you are correct. When you do not have highly qualified teachers in classrooms every single day, every day that a kid goes into that classroom where there's a sub or there's just someone that's there because we needed a body to be in that classroom, that kid is losing out. That is a skill that kid is not accessing or not learning or not growing and developing. And so now that's putting our kids behind. And so that compounds over time. And so if we do not figure this thing out with celebrating our teachers, paying our teachers, appreciating our teachers, we are going to feel the effects of this. And I think if you go to some schools, they're already seeing the effects of this.
I would concur. My experiences have largely been in rural, smaller schools. But while there's some uniqueness in all schools, there's a lot of similarities when you get to the fundamental aspects. And really, what I hear you describing, Mr. Nunley, is no more than just fundamentals of education and fundamentals of loving and supporting students and educators. And brings me to my next aspect. One of the things that, just be open about it, what I have found when it comes to appreciating others is we don't tell them enough that we love them. it's almost as if you feel guilty, even if you think about telling a peer on staff that you love them, or if you say it to a student, how it's going to be taken out of context because of maybe how our society has turned that word around. But I'm not sure there's been a more powerful word in my lifetime that I've ever heard that's made an impact on me, and just knowing and feeling and respecting and telling someone how much I love them. I don't know how much more appreciation you could really provide other than that recognition, but it doesn't exist enough, is what I would say, in our world today.
And love is the universal language that I think connects us all. We all know what it's like to either feel loved or to not feel loved. We all can share stories where both things may have occurred, where you felt real love or maybe where you did not feel real love. And so you're right that we need to talk about that more. We need to say it to each other more. And I think that's where coming back to appreciating the moment. You never know when your time is called. None of us do. And I would regret not telling people that I truly care about, that I truly admire, that I've never told them, I love you, I care about you, you matter to me. I think about that when sometimes it's been a week or two and I haven't called my parents and I haven't said, hey mom, hey dad, I just want you to know I love you, I miss you, I'm thinking about you. And sometimes they'll get on me. We ain't heard from you all week. We haven't heard from you. And they'll get on me. And rightfully, because there's just a reminder that you just don't know. And I want everyone to know how I feel. And I think sometimes we don't teach our kids that. Like we don't teach our kids to love each other. We don't talk to them about that. We don't say it enough to them. And you're right. I agree. There's not enough of that because that could solve a lot of the problems. Because I can forget differences that we may have on politics or philosophy or whatever when I know you genuinely care about me and love me.
Well said. And thinking and taking that a little bit further, Mr. Nunley, one of the things, being very open, I've struggled with, I really have never struggled with forgiving other people. At least I don't think so. Because really, try not to create judgments to where you have to focus on forgiving. But let me tell you, when it comes to forgiving self and loving self, it's been a battle at times in my life. So much so to where it probably has gotten in the way, not for me in a selfish matter, but if I'm participating on teams, they probably maybe haven't got the best of me. So I've cheated that team maybe in that particular regard. So let me get back to a question centered on you, my friend. How do you go about your growth? How do you go about ensuring when failure comes into play with maybe something you're responsible to lead or a team you're a part of, that you see it more as a growth opportunity and don't let it block your personal and professional growth?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've tried is, again, be very self-reflective.
Mm,
Um, I think processing where I've met my expectations and where I have not met my expectations has always benefited me. Now, you're right. That was tough, I would say, in the beginning, because when I didn't meet those expectations, you can't run from your mind
mm.
and you can't get sleep. And I've sent an email with a typo before to staff, and it bothered me all night. It was just a typo. It was a typo. It happens. But it bothered me all night that I sent an email, that I didn't reread it, that I didn't make sure everything was correct. And it ate me up. And it took me some time to say to myself, guess what? You are a human being. You are going to make mistakes. You're not perfect. You do have flaws. And that's okay. That's part of the development. And once I've said to myself, falling is just growth to stand, that then empowered me with that self-reflection piece. So now when I'm working with groups that may be challenging and I'm trying to figure it out, I have a willingness to take some risk, to try some things that maybe I wouldn't be as comfortable with, because I'm okay if I fall, if I don't, if I fail in that moment, because failing in that moment doesn't mean I'm a failure. It just means I'm learning and I'm growing. And ultimately, I have to now think differently to get to where I'm trying to go.
I love that quote, failing is just growth to stand. I'm gonna steal that from you if that's okay and use it in that regard. I'll give you all the credit in the world. I love that because many times you hear that failing isn't defining you as an individual unless you choose to allow it to do so in that regard. But there's a lot of responsibility that all of us have in life. And if we're not careful, failing, sometimes we may allow failing to define us, maybe through mental fatigue, physical fatigue, the pains of life, other things, adversity that we haven't got our arms wrapped around. Talk a bit about, you've mentioned self-reflection and reflective in both episodes. What's your process to ensure that you don't lose sight of the importance and value of reflection?
So I think we talked about in the first episode legacy, and we talked about it in regards to my father. And so that's where I believe having great mentorship
Mm.
can come in handy. So there's one part where I'm doing it on my own. I'm self-reflecting. I'm going through my process. I go into my office. I kind of think through that. What success do I need to change? But that other component to help me stay grounded in that process is talking to great mentors and other leaders, because that's when that shared experience really has an impact on my growth and my development. And it makes me feel normal,
Mm.
right? When I hear from that veteran mentor and say, I've made that mistake too. I've done that too. Here's how I went about figuring it out. Or I didn't. Here's why I didn't make this mistake, because I talked to such and such and they gave me this information. Or here's some research that you can look at that might give you some insight on that. And so that mentorship piece is critical, and coaching is critical for any leader. And I don't care what level you're at. I've talked to people who I would think, oh my God, they've made it. And they will tell me, oh no, I have people that I reach out to as well, that I talk to as well, because it's it's a shared experience that I think connects us to help us all continue to grow and develop.
Thank you for sharing that. Very important reflection and that having a process. And to your point, the S in the still rhythm of leadership model that we base Leadership Synergized around talks about serving self, which really isn't intended to be selfish, but serving self in the self growth aspect. And sometimes, to your point, we forget about those people in our lives, those people who've been there, done that before us. And what better
Mhm.
way to serve self and to grow self than just simply to lay it out there and be vulnerable with them, right? And then listen to them as they give us that input and feedback.
Yeah, I think sometimes leaders get caught up in this idea that I have to know it all. The best leaders know when to say, I don't know. Those are some of the best leaders. I don't know. That I need to go ask. I need to research. I need to test my ideas. I need to seek out other ideas. I need to get a different perspective. Those are the best leaders. Whenever I see someone that knows it all, that's where I'm skeptical. When I meet that person that knows it all, I'm like, okay, okay.
I like that. Mr. Nunley, we're coming near the end of our time here on the second episode. And again, God bless you, my friend. I really appreciate what great words of wisdom and experience and just great model and representative of the whole still rhythm of life, rhythm of leadership concept and model. what one piece of advice would you like to give to the leaders or individuals starting out and just now looking to put that first piece of resource or tool in their leadership toolbox that you've learned through your life?
In your right, I think understanding your emotional intelligence,
Mm.
you know what your triggers are, those things that get to you, that create that feeling that bubbles up, where then you run hot or cold, that can impact your decision making. So, really, that emotional intelligence, know thyself, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, and just be willing to share. And as you, a great part, being vulnerable to a trusted peer, mentor, spouse that can help you on this journey, and know that you do not have to be alone in this. Leadership can feel lonely, but you do not have to be alone in that journey.
One final question, my friend. How does Gregory Nunley define success?
Every day that I'm able to come home to that beautiful wife, those loving kids, that is a successful day for me. Now, in terms of leadership, whenever I've been able to share something with someone that they feel have an impact on their life or their next step, and they're like, "Hey, thank you, that really helped me." That too helps me define that, okay, I've done something right today.
We have been so blessed to have you, my friend, for these past 2 weeks an episode. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know I've taken away a lot, in particular with the reflective process and the expanded use of mentors. But I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you on behalf of our viewers and listeners. I appreciate what you represent as a child of God. I appreciate you for what you represent as a leader, as an educator, as a man, as a husband and a father, and as a son. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. What a great model and representative you are. I love you, my friend, and thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. The love is returned to you. It has been an honor. And anytime you need me, just let me know.
Hey, I'm going to keep your phone number handy there, see, and you've got my Calendly now. So we're going to set
Yes,
you up, and we will bring you back as we become topic focused, maybe some panel discussions in the future, my friend.
I look forward to it.
Thanks to Gregory Nunley. What a wonderful human being and great leader and educator and father and husband. And I hope and I trust that you've learned as I have during these past 2 weeks. I thank you. Don't forget, life doesn't have to be lived in a hurry, no matter how much others try to push us. It's all about a rhythm. It's about a focus on happiness, relationships. I appreciate you. Mr. Nunley appreciates you. God bless you. Thank you for watching and listening. Have a great day.
God bless.